tell me what your full name, where and when you were born, and what is your connection to historic Overtown?
Okay. My name is Fabian Martinez. I was born in Cuba, March 7, 1976. I came to the U.S. in 1980, the Mario boat lift. So that's about to be 40 years ago that I came at 4 years old in a boat crossing the ocean. Our boat was sinking. We were rescued, and I actually arrived to Key West in a helicopter. Myself, my mother, and my little sister.
Okay, that's incredible. And what is your connection to historic Overtown?
My connection to historic Overtown, as far as I can remember, is when the Metro Rail first opened. You know, coming over to the Miami Arena to see, the Miami Dolphins, the Panthers, to see Mariah Carey, Janet Jackson, these type of things, as far as I can remember. And then later on, as an adult, my connections with the Overtown Community Garden that later on turned into the Green Haven Community Garden. And then, the honor of meeting John Lewis at what's considered now the Innovation Center.
What can you tell me about your fondest memories of being in historic Overtown? You mentioned the garden, obviously the weight of meeting John Lewis. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, I mean, as soon as I found out that John Lewis was going to be in Overtown, I jumped on the trolley from Allapattah, which is where I live, and I came over here. And I remember, I didn't have on this shirt, but I had on another shirt that represents Cuba and Puerto Rico, which is another brand I carry dear to my heart. So that was just a great honor, knowing everything he stood for. So I think that's my greatest memory.
Okay. Being that you're in a neighboring neighborhood of Allapattah, close enough to Overtown, what are some of the crisis events that you know that historic Overtown has experienced, and how were you personally affected by those? And when I say crisis, I'm thinking weather, I'm thinking extreme heat, thinking displacement, housing, homelessness. Can you describe a little bit to me what are some of the events that you know that historic Overtown has experienced?
Right. As far as heat, I understand that when you have people that don't have transportation, as currently I don't have transportation, having to move around in the summertime, it's very difficult. And then sometimes something as simple as jumping on a bus and there is no overhead to cover you from the heat, or if it rains, there is no overhead to cover you from the rain. I know these are difficult things that I've, in the last 6 years without a car, have been able to experience. So I know a lot of the residents in Overtown go through that. As far as displacement, my background is in real estate, so I do understand both sides of what's happening. And Miami is a city that traditionally has always been a developing city that doesn't really look at the little people. Their growth is based on development, which is important, but it's not the most important. And I like to get into good trouble, like John Lewis said. And it's important for a city to have progress, but you have to also be considerate of the people in the bottom, especially when those people in the bottoms are the ones that constructed it, are the foundation of a city.
I love that response. Even mentioning climate, and most residents or people from historic Overtown, that's one thing they love about it, is it's walkability. You can walk around. How do you think, or how do you think historic Overtown can respond to these crises?
That's difficult, but I think in the most simplest terms, unity. We have to be united to be able to overcome these, because these are difficult challenges for any individual and for any community. So I think not only the residents of Overtown, but the residents of other neighborhoods that are also going through the same, for us to have each other's back. You know, telling our stories, connecting, showing up.
You know, what do you see now, given what you have identified as crisis? You've seen historic Overtown encounter, you've personally been affected by. What do you think would help to protect Overtown, historic Overtown, from these threats?
Well, I mean, one of the things is the people that do own property here, make sure that they have the resources necessary for them to keep their properties, for them not to sell it. You know, if taxes went up, they need help to pay for their taxes. If maintenance repairs need to be done, for us to show up to help them get those maintenance done. So that's on that front. And for the other people that are renting, finding new models for them to be able to purchase and be proud of their community. So it's not about getting them out of here, it's about helping them own and stay owning the property here.
That's a beautiful, beautiful answer. What would you make, or what do you make of, or what do you think would make historic Overtown be able to bounce back or recover from the crises in the future, or crisis events like you mentioned just now, redevelopment, climate? What do you think would be an answer to helping the community recover from these events?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go back to ownership, because if we don't own our lands and we don't help each other, then we're gonna get priced out, we're gonna get pushed out. And you know, as far as climate, you know, that's outside of taking care of the land. And you know, something as small as maybe having you know, these community cleanups that we have, making sure that the residents are involved as well, and giving them some type of incentive to help them with, you know, things of that nature. But definitely ownership is the way to go, because when you feel part owner of something, there's a sense of pride in that, and then they can't push you out, you know. So definitely, I think that's the way to go.
Thank you. What do you want people to know or remember about you? And then, what do you want people to know or remember about the historic community of Overtown?
Well, about myself, that I overcame the obstacles, the challenges that were presented in front of me, that I didn't give up, you know, that I stood with integrity like my grandmother did, that I was a fair person, and that I loved the 305. And as far as I want to build a deeper connection to Overtown, because I believe that Allapattah has a trolley coming straight to Overtown, you know, AP to OT. Mm-hmm. So I think using Esquina de Abuela as a connection to Overtown would be something beautiful that could continue to nourish that connection.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, Esquina de Abuela is my grandmother's home and business. It was like a Cuban Sanford and Son. She did upholstery and she sold secondhand furniture for many years. So in the past, 9 years ago, I moved in, started to clean it up. 8 years ago, I incorporated, and I've turned it into an underground cultural center where we've helped a lot of members of the community. We've painted murals at elementary schools like Comstock Elementary, Maya Angelou, Charles Drew K through 8. We've done music videos, events. Most of it has been, you know, underground. What I mean by underground is I didn't have the permission or permits, but God said I could do it. You know, you don't need permission to do good stuff. So now I am finally getting the 501(c) to make the necessary improvements so it can continue to be a legacy and also spread. I find it to be like a foundation and like a blueprint that we could spread it to different communities Maybe one day even have a Esquina de Abuela Overtown edition.
Thank you. What do you think, well, I think I know the answer, but what do you think is your most joyful or prideful thought, or what brings you the most pride or joy when you think about historic Overtown?
Let me see. For me, it's the resiliency of the people, even through all the adversity and all that has been done to them intentionally. I'm not talking about natural causes, I'm talking about things that were done intentionally. They overcame it. So that to me gives me a sense of power and strength to know that I can do the same.
What do you, when you think about historic Overtown as we conclude, what are you most concerned about that you want to tell us about?
I just want to make sure that I feel that Overtown is not such a big area. If you really were to figure out who are the historic people here, it really should not be that difficult to help them out, to see them thrive. This is not, we're not talking about a whole country, we're not talking about millions of people. Figure out who are the people that are original from here, and you understand the history of all the difficulties. It should not be that difficult to really help them out on a grand scale, starting with the kids to the parents. You can't just work on the kids. It has to be a family thing. So I just really think that Miami, being a world-class city, should have the resources and the capabilities of helping the whole community come up. That would be Miami's legacy, giving back. And starting with Overtown, then you could go to the other historic Black communities. But this being in the midst of downtown and all this high-rise, it would be a shame for Miami not to step up and do what it has to do.
Thank you.